Day 2 of the new year. I'm already over it.
Well, at least you made it this far, Austin. That's all I got to say.
I tried hard. I really did, but I'm just not about it. Not about it. The Pirates life, the fantasy life is not the life for me. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
To be fair, I didn't even play in any championships, so I can't even complain. Really didn't have any fantasy football stress this weekend. You're playing for championships next week, right?
So I have one. I have one league where I have to survive Evan McPherson, and I have like a 30-point cushion to play for a championship next week. After that matchup, I have a Yahoo one where I'm playing in a semifinal where I have to. I think Dawson Knox and Jamar Chase have to combine for. Let me pull it up. Just be easier on myself. Basically, I have to hold leads in the two Yahoo leagues. So I have Chase and Knox going against Joe Burrow, and that's it for him. And I have a 13-point cushion currently.
Oof.
My other league, I have to have Josh Allen and Jamar Chase hold a lead of 12 plus points against Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins, and Tyler Bass.
Oh.
And the quarterback scoring is like Tom Brady had 80 points this week, so I feel relatively safe in my.
Bills are already down a defender this game. I can't tell who it is, but somebody's down on the field, so
Looks like a safety.
not a great start for them at all.
Is that Poyer?
It might be. It might be Jordan Poyer.
So I think if it's a safety, it's either Micah Hyde or Jordan Poyer.
I think it's
I can't
Poyer
remember.
because it was hard
Yeah,
to
Hyde's
tell
been out
from
all
the
year.
back.
Because one of them's been out like all year with an injury.
Well, where do you want to start? Where do
We
we
can just
even
go from
start?
Thursday if you want to do it that way. Tried and true, old reliable.
Thursday didn't mean a whole lot for the Titans. It mainly kept Dallas in the conversation of the 1 seed in the NFC East title. So not a whole lot there. Titans played their, second guy since the game meant absolutely nothing for them. But CeeDee Lamb, that dude, 11 receptions for 100 yards. That'll help you get a championship. 21 points, not too shabby. Dalton Schultz, 7 for 56 and 2 touchdowns when tight end's been a crater all year. T.Y. Hilton with 4 catches for 50 yards. And, maybe we signed Terrell Owens at 49 years old or however old he is. Interceptions, still kind of a problem for Dak. One was not really a turnover-worthy play. Peyton Hendershot just decided he wanted to play hot potato. But another one, Dak threw directly to Kevin Byard. But outside of this game didn't really mean a whole lot. For people were angry Derrick Henry wasn't going to play, but not really much you can do about that. They're playing Jacksonville on Saturday for the AFC East title and an AFC South title.
Yeah, if you're mad that Derrick Henry didn't play in your fantasy championship, the easiest solution is just not to draft Derrick Henry. I have him in one league. It was an auto draft. I wouldn't say I'm low on Derrick Henry this year. I just, as good as he's been, I feel like we've been drafting him at his absolute peak from a couple years back, or a little bit discounted off of that. I just don't like the upside. Titans are in trouble, man. They have absolutely no momentum going into this Week 18 matchup against Jacksonville, and they're a team that, albeit, has been inconsistent from time to time, but Jaguars are cooking with peanut oil, man. So it's going to be really interesting moving forward, at least in the next week, to see who's going to actually win the AFC South. Because the NFC South said, "Nah, we're cutting it right here."
They're over it. To be fair, we're all over it at this point. But
a thing, Austin, as a Cowboys fan, how many more weeks can you deal with Ezekiel Elliott being outproduced by the next guy in the running back room? Because he's had a solid year, yes, but at what point do we start asking, is he done, but how much more does Zeke really have left? 19 carries, 37 yards, and yes, he scored the touchdown, so he salvaged any fantasy performance. But in terms of tangible football, I don't know how you feel about Dak throwing the ball 41 times a game, especially in a playoff setting, because I think if this team's going to win moving forward, they're going to have to be able to run the ball. And yes, Pollard will come back and be healthy, but if for some reason he's slower to get back, I want to gauge your level of concern
on Zeke moving forward, he definitely doesn't break tackles like he used to. He definitely doesn't hit holes like he used to. Granted, this season has been probably his best season since his what was it, like 1,200-yard, 1,300-yard season. I'd have to pull up his stats all the way, but it's been his best season in the last 3 or 4 years, and he's still hitting 1K just about every year. So I've never understood the whole Zeke is washed type thing. Maybe he is in terms of fantasy because he just doesn't really get there for anybody. But I don't know. Obviously he's going to stay. He's going to be that guy. He only has 866. He did miss a couple games though, so that doesn't surprise me that he's not going to hit 1K this year. But hit 1,600 in 2016, 1,400 in 2018, 1,357 in 2019, almost 1,000 in 2020, 1,000 last year. We'll probably fall short this year of 1,000 unless he breaks it off huge. I'm not really concerned. It kind of just depends who the number 2 is moving forward, because it really just has been that kind of change of pace, even though I don't know what pace Ezekiel Elliott brings, but there's definitely worse options to have. We went up against one of the best run defenses in the league and kept trying to establish the run when it wasn't there. And we kind of just went through the air and carved them up, and we carved up Philadelphia for the most part last week. Tampa Bay is most likely our first round opponent, and their secondary has not been great. The resurgence from Brady's a little terrifying with how bad our secondary has been. So, yeah, the picks have been really bad, but half of them have been just bad hands by our guys for the most part, or Dak being not on the same page, which is probably both people's fault. I'm not trying to take any blame off Dak, but if Dak thinks he's running a post when he's running a streak and he throws a pick, then it's kind of on both guys there. That kind of needs to get fixed, and that has been a problem this season. So if he throws the ball 41 times against Tampa, it wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't be too concerned per se, especially because I don't know how well we're going to run the ball, and we're going to face a much different team than we did week 1. So honestly, I'm more concerned about the defense than I am about Dak Prescott.
Fair enough. Because the biggest thing for me is this season, you guys seem to have thrown the ball a lot more. Or in terms of just pace, you guys seem to have thrown the ball a lot more comparatively to Dak's earlier seasons. I know that you're aware of this, but his 2 interceptions in the game tied him for the league lead, or he currently has the league lead in interceptions.
Yeah.
Which 14 is a career high for Dak, which is impressive because he's a guy that has played 16 games every season besides his broken ankle and this season. And his previous career high was 13. And that's with him attempting almost 150 more passes. Obviously, he's got to take care of the ball a bit better, especially whenever the lights are going to get brighter. Because the biggest thing with Dallas over the years for you has been defense. And the defense for most of this season has been gangbusters. Like Parsons, Trayvon Diggs. You guys have dealt with injuries, which has hurt you guys. But I'm interested to see which version of Dak Prescott can show up in the playoffs. Because Dallas, in terms of top end, heading into the playoffs, I think they have probably the 3rd best shot to come out of the NFC currently. Especially after what Minnesota did this weekend.
Yeah, seriously. I don't know what's going on there. And the Eagles have to beat the Giants now, but at the same time, the Giants also don't have to do anything, realistically. What about the streakiest of streaky teams in the NFL, the Miami Dolphins? They won 3 in a row to start the season, and they lost 3 in a row. Then they won 5 in a row, and now they've lost 5 in a row. What is going on? They win. They can still get to the playoffs if they beat the Jets and the Patriots lose to the Bills, which is extremely possible. But what is going on? I get it. They played Teddy and Skylar Thompson, but beforehand.
If you look at this offseason for the Miami Dolphins, you could say that a lot has changed. But if you look at just the organization as a whole, I wouldn't say Miami is the best organization in sports by any stretch. If Dan Snyder weren't an owner in the NFL, Miami would probably be looked at a lot worse in regards to just being a terrible organization. They literally lost their 1st round pick this year due to their owner's transgressions. And I'm not going to blame Tua for this. This is a team that is atrocious on defense on the road. They are one of the worst defensive units in football whenever they step outside of Hard Rock Stadium, which is a compliment to them at home. Their defense at home is one of the best in football on a per game basis in terms of points allowed. Tua cannot stay on the field. He has been ruled out for this week. If I'm correct, it's going to be Bridgewater or Skylar Thompson. This is a team that is incredibly talented. This is a team that is incredibly streaky. Tyreek Hill is arguably one of the best receivers in football, and Jalen Waddle isn't too far down that list. Whether you have him in the top 15, top 10, doesn't matter to me. Insanely skilled group of players on offense. But skill only takes you so far, and the thing with Mike McDaniel's schemes is we've seen them before, and we've seen them executed with players that are arguably more talented than the guys that they have out in Miami right now in terms of the quarterback position. Because as bad as Jimmy Garoppolo has been through stretches, he's incredibly consistent, and he hits the windows. And he has the arm strength to hit those windows. The biggest limitation to Tua Tagovailoa's game to this point in his career, besides injuries, is his arm strength. And time again, offensively, we have Tua throwing into windows, not throwing to players. So it's very hard for Tyreek and Jalen Waddle to have big plays where they beat their corner and they're just dusting him down the sideline. Think about like a Jamar Chase. Whenever Burrow hits him in stride, it's game over. But whenever it comes to this offense in Miami, Tua and Jalen and even some of the running backs, they're having to backtrack towards the ball. They get into open space, Tua throws it into the space, and the receiver makes the play more often than not. Mm-hmm. And Tua being incredibly accurate is great for this offense. Tua not being able to play hurts them incredibly because I believe this offense, unlike Brian Flores' Miami offense, is truly catered to his strengths, which don't particularly align identically with Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater. And so the upside they had officially goes down. The defense is on the field far more often. It's the perfect storm. This is a young team with an incredibly young quarterback that has faced a lot of adversity going into his first 3 years of football at the pro level. And that's coming from one of the greatest programs in college football at Alabama. This is the guy that made everybody question if Jalen Hurts could play quarterback. Like, that's who Tua Tagovailoa is. And Miami can salvage it. Do I think they're going to? Probably not. They, at their peak this season, seemed like they could be a top 3 threat out in Miami. I just think it was a little too much too early. They are still a relatively young team. Tyreek Hill is like one of their oldest skill position guys. So I'm not super worried about them moving forward. I think if Miami loses their next game and they miss the playoffs, take it with a grain of salt. The AFC is far more competitive than the NFC is this year, it seems like. I'm not saying that the playoff teams in the NFC are terrible, but I think this top end of the AFC, you go teams 1 through 10, everybody has a claim to the playoffs, especially in the wild card. And it's coming down to who's healthy and who's hot.
It's funny, too, because we thought it would take 10 wins to get into the playoffs, and looks like it'll take it. For the AFC, it's 10 at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe. No, not even that. Nine wins will get you the number 7 seed. Hell, it might even be 8 if things broke a certain way. But, yeah. I mean, I think that just goes to show how much the AFC beats the crap out of each other. The AFC East beat the crap out of each other. The NFC West, outside of the Chiefs beating the crap out of everyone, they beat the crap out of each other. Well, the Raiders and Chargers beat the crap out of each other. Everyone beat the Chargers, or everyone beat the Broncos, and then everyone lost to the Chiefs. That's just kind of how these things work. But the North beat the crap out of each other. The South sucks. But it's been a really interesting year for sure. And yeah, Tua missing a couple games has definitely not been good. And he's basically missed three and a half games at this point, I believe. So, and Teddy Bridgewater is, we knew he wasn't that dude last year with Denver, and that's why Denver went out and got Russell Wilson. But it's like you said, they have a lot of upside, and they have a great-minded coach that'll lead them to the playoffs at some point if it's not this season. So I think they should be more than okay. 2 teams that are not okay, the Cardinals and the Falcons.
Man, this game got. So the thing is, in my notes for this, I said David Blau does his best Colt McCoy impression. It didn't matter who was starting at quarterback for this Cardinals team.
No.
This season is the one from hell. As bad as the Chargers injuries were, I think the Cardinals season has been worse in the macro sense of it. They lost their most important piece in Kyler Murray. J.J. Watt is retiring because one, he can't stay healthy, and two, he just doesn't like losing. Um, their GM's been gone for like weeks now. He's on a leave of absence. Their head coach is like he's been gone for the last 3 years. This is a franchise that is in dire need of change, and it starts with the head coach and the GM. You have your quarterback, Kyler Murray, if he is back in the capacity I expect him to be next year after he's healed, is going to be a top 10 quarterback. I have no worries about Kyler Murray. But if the house of cards fell in Houston as fast as it did, I would not be surprised if we come out of this in 2 or 3 years and Kyler's on a different team. Genuinely.
Kyler deserves a different team, let's be fair.
Because at this point, I don't see an immediate solution to get this team back to where they were last year, or even where they were whenever Kurt Warner was playing. Like, the way they are built is just so diametrically the opposite of what teams need to do to be competitive in today's NFL. Their best receiver is north of 30. Their quarterback does not have a great offensive line. The weapons are great. The quarterback is great. But the defense sucks. The coaching is god awful. And I fail to see the upside moving forward. It feels like they're going to have to retool, and I don't think they have the funds or the capacity to retool with the personnel they have in the front office.
Front office or the field for that matter. The whole organization outside of the talent they have on offense is beaten to hell. They're just not good. Like, Kyler is easily the most talented player on that team next to Hopkins and Brown. Like I said, it's easily one of the most talented offenses in terms of skill positions that there was. James Conner being healthy has really done well for them, but it's a bottom 3 system in Cliff Kingsbury, and the fact that he still has a job when I've been screaming for it since last season is a joke. They got absolutely embarrassed NFL wildcard weekend, and now Cliff is going to get away with it because he's had to deal with a backup quarterback. Like, no, you weren't good before that. Like, there's no reason for Cliff Kingsbury to still have a job. There's no reason that he should have gotten an extension through 2027. DeAndre Hopkins probably can get traded at this point for anything, like get anything back for him at this point. Kyler Murray definitely deserves to play on a different team. I don't know why people hate him. It's the weirdest thing to me because he likes playing Call of Duty, but whatever. But I've said it before. I've said it 1,000 times, so I'm not going to get into it again. But from what they were last season to now is a complete 180 the wrong way. And there's no really bright side to this right now. There is no light at the end of this tunnel. I don't know when this tunnel ends if they're going to be this bad.
The thing with the Cardinals that really got me is about 2 years ago, the Cardinals kind of looked in the mirror at the landscape of the NFC, and they've played it very similarly to how the Rams played it, but they already had the quarterback in place. They pushed a lot of chips in. They didn't go all in per se, but with inking Kyler to this monster extension, they're officially all in on what this group was supposed to be. But I don't think this group was ever supposed to be a champion with how the rest of the league has been retrofitted. Because even after Kyler Murray having a great year and having DeAndre Hopkins and then Isaiah Simmons has been better, like, there's been internal improvement over the years. The coaching has still sucked, and they've at best been the third best team in their division consistently. And it took the Rams dying this season. It took the Rams basically starting third and fourth stringers since week 7. And now they're not the worst team in the division.
Yeah.
Speaking of worst teams in divisions, Atlanta, it's probably you. Desmond Ridder shows us that he did enough to win this game. He didn't turn the ball over, which is great, but I don't think he's done enough to prove to me that he's a starting quarterback in the league. Obviously, Ridder's been better than Malik Willis in the short times that we've seen both of them. Only thing that I gleaned out of this game is Tyler Algier is legit. I think the Falcons might have found their next running back. As good as Cordero Patterson has been over the last couple of years, and as frustrating as he was to play against last year, they got themselves a dude. For all the hype Drake London got this offseason, Tyler Algier has lived up to London's hype and even his own. London will be good moving forward whenever they have an actual quarterback throwing the ball to the receivers. And the runway is there for him to be a solid 2 or even the 1 in that offense once Kyle Pitts is healthy. This team is a year away from being 2 years away. They need to get the quarterback right. I don't know where they're going to go in this offseason. I don't think their pick should be high enough to have a chance at a first-round guy if somebody were to drop. But I am interested to see where they go this offseason. Do they try and get quarterback through the draft? Do they try to address it through free agency? Because the team isn't good enough for a Jimmy Garoppolo to really help them with their ceiling. Maybe Garoppolo extends their floor a little bit, but the Falcons need a quarterback, and the defense could use some upgrades. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with a lot of their impact guys. And Austin has fallen off, so I will go ahead and let's see. Well, I'm on a tight Zoom, so don't worry, guys. And he is back, and we are
My
back
tab
in action.
exploded.
No, you're good. I was just talking about how I'm going to find it interesting to see what players get moved in the offseason if they are to move any impact guys. A guy like AJ Terrell is somebody that he's somebody that I could see getting moved for assets. They're not competing right now, and they're not going to compete in the next couple of years unless something miraculous happens. So
I'm interested to see who they draft. That'll be something. They have a mediocre pick.
Well, where are they picking right now? So
that's a great question.
NFL draft order. They have to be top 10, right?
No way. There's no way they're top 10.
So they currently have the 8th pick. No, I'm looking at 2022, not 2023. Sorry.
I'm kind of surprised that
they have the 7th pick.
They have the 7th pick.
So maybe they're in the range of a Will Levis if the Colts don't draft quarterback and just say, fuck it, let's get Derek Carr.
So far, this has them taking Tyree Wilson, the edge out of Texas Tech, which tracks. That's, I think, if what they need to do is, this is a heavily defensive or quarterback type of top 10, really, for the most part. Like, you got Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, or Will Levis. Then you got Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Miles Murphy, Tyree Wilson, Kaylee Ringo. It's if they do have a top 10 pick and it sticks that way, they definitely should go defensive. And I would shop AJ Terrell. I'm not sure what they can get for him. Desmond Ridder has shown that he should probably be the starter week 1 next season. He's done enough to show me that, and that he should get to play more with Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Tyler Algier. Outside of that, I really don't know. They're really just going to be another mediocre season on the horizon.
If they're not going to draft, I don't think they should draft a quarterback this season. I think a trade back and be in the Anthony Richardson range. I'm not sure how much better he is than Ridder, but the dude had a really good season out in Florida, and he's flashed some incredibly skillful talents. Personally, I think Atlanta could be in line to just tanking next year because there's a guy in Caleb Williams and Drake May. Those are probably 2 guys that could probably have an argument to being 1 or 2 in this draft. Like, Bryce Young is exceptional, and CJ Stroud proved to the country on Saturday against Georgia that he is as good as the guys that he's put up against. But if they don't want to go quarterback this season, if the right people opt out for the draft, I think next year's class could be even better at quarterback. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. The Cardinals, their pick is going to be top 4, which is great. They can actually address some defensive issues. I just don't see how one piece is going to fix that for them.
Yeah.
And Micah Hyde is injured in the Bills game.
It is not looking good early for the Bills at all. If the Bengals will just keep being able to march down all over them. The Eagles have made things interesting. The Eagles have made things real interesting. The Saints came marching in, and they won. They beat Gardner Minshew 20-10. And Gardner Minshew, 18 for 32, 274, a touchdown and a pick. No real run game was to be had. Miles Sanders had 12 carries for 61 yards. Boston Scott had 2 carries and Gardner Minshew technically had a carry, but Devonta Smith, 9 catches for 115 yards. A.J. Brown, 4 receptions for 97 yards. This receiving core is coming out to be really good. And if they had Jalen Hurts, they probably would have easily won this game or even last week against Dallas, to be fair. This offense is insane, but the defense is beat up a little bit. Andy Dalton threw for 204 and a pick, but only 4 incomplete passes. Taysom Hill, 14 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown. Death taxes, Taysom Hill, vulture touchdowns. Easy as that. How many carries did Alvin Kamara get, you may ask? 16. Taysom Hill got 14.
Alvin Kamara is a better runner than Taysom Hill. I don't know. Like, I get the Kamara, hate in fantasy. I understand it, but I don't think Alvin Kamara is washed by any means. I just think Dennis Allen doesn't like him to score the touchdowns. But 4.6 per carry is really good. And we're not going to sit here and act like the Eagles' defense is trash. Yes, their rushing defense isn't the best in the world, but it's not league worst. Chris Olave had a decent day, 42 yards. Minshew Mania, is it finally over? It's never going to die.
Never started.
I expect him to be either starting for a terrible team or backing up somebody on a middling team. Atlanta Falcons, is Gardner Minshew your quarterback? Find out next week. But genuinely, I don't fully get the Minshew stuff. Like, I understand. It was fun in Jacksonville. They had nothing to play for besides getting Trevor Lawrence, which sucked for Gardner, but, they're happy about it now. Minshew is not the guy you want as the signal caller for a team that is trying to win right now. It's just not how that works.
Yeah, we do this every time. Every time a backup comes in, it's the hype is out of the water. It was Bailey Zappi. It was Mike White. It was Gardner Minshew. It was Jimmy Garoppolo. Doesn't really count.
The thing is, who Gardner Minshew is. Gardner Minshew is he's the Gen X version of Ryan Tannehill. He's probably a millennial, but hear me out. The thing about Gardner Minshew is he's better than the worst starters in the league, but he's not if he can back up Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts is a top 10 guy. He'd be able to back up he's better than Cooper Rush, but he's worse than most top 15 starters. You wouldn't start him over Kirk Cousins. You wouldn't start him over Dak. Arguably, you probably wouldn't start him over Derek Carr. Obviously, Derek Carr got benched this season. There's more at work there than just the play on the field. But the Minshew equation all depends on who else is around him. Because he's not going to start over Trevor Lawrence. He's not going to start him over Justin Fields. He has limited upside. If he has great weapons, sure, he will sling the rock around. He has arm talent. But talent only gets you so far in the NFL. Situations matter. Traits matter. We've seen him as a starter, and I think that's who he is. So I see his career lasting a while. He's going to be the next Fitzpatrick, in a sense. He will be a very good backup to have, and if you have to have him start over time, you're probably better off than if you had Nick Mullins or most of Jarrett Stidham's career. Obviously not this week, but I just don't see Minshew as an actual starter in the league. I'm not sold.
I just want to say real quick, prayers up for Damar Hamlin. They've brought the stretcher out. The ambulance is on the field. He took some sort of hit, most likely to the head, stood up, and then just fell backwards. So I hope Damar Hamlin's going to be okay because that's
terrifying.
That's definitely one of the most terrifying things I've seen on a football field. That's up there with like the Ryan Shazier stuff and the broken legs. That's terrifying. Jeez. Okay. But the Eagles have they are in their spot where if they win against the Giants next week, they're the 1 seed. They're the NFC East champions. But if they lose and the Cowboys beat the Commanders, then the Eagles will fall down to the 5 seed and the Cowboys will take the division. But nobody wins back-to-back NFC East titles. We've discussed this 1,000 times, but that's just how these things work. Is Gardner Minshew's contract up this season, or is he technically still an Eagle?
He's a free agent after this year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess he's going somewhere. I don't know where. It'll be interesting. But you brought up, I really wanted to get into this one. You brought up Derek Carr.
Yes.
Let's talk about it. Derek Carr got
Okay.
benched, inactive on game day. All this, all that by Josh McDaniels. Jared Stidham came in and played. You want to start with the game, or you want to start with Derek Carr?
Start with the game. I think the game is more fun to talk about, and I
The
think
game was wild.
I caught pieces of it. Niners defense looked really human for a good portion of that game.
They were bound to at some point.
They didn't play down per se. I feel like Devontae Adams is just quarterback proof for
True.
as bad as he looked in stretches. I'm not going to blame his lack of production on anybody besides schemes. He's literally he has the all-time single season receiving yards record in Raiders history, and the season's not done yet. Like he broke Tim Brown's record as soon as he stepped onto their sidelines. So Devontae Adams he's church. He's the truth. He proved that again this week. Josh Jacobs, again against the best rushing defense in football, showed out. He had a really good game. 69 yards and a touchdown is more than I expected from him this week. And Jared Stidham, he came out and he balled. Maybe the Niners expected the Raiders to kind of just suck and just viewed Stidham as kind of just a roadblock on their way to the playoffs. Whatever thoughts they had going into the game definitely weren't the thoughts they had come halftime, because the Raiders came out punching. The only problem is the Niners offense can punch with damn near the best heavyweights in football. And there's about 3 reasons for that. Kyle Shanahan, Christian McCaffrey, and George Kittle. I also credit the offensive line for the Niners' success. George Kittle, for lack of fantasy production, be damned. The man is one of the best tight ends in football. He blocks better than basically every tight end, and he can create plays, and he's great after the catch. But this team was special last year without a running back, short of Elijah Mitchell. They turned Debo into a scat back, and now Christian McCaffrey is just the full-time Debo Samuel from last year. 193 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns for McCaffrey in this game. It was weird watching Brock Purdy and Stidham play this entire game, but Brock Purdy really hasn't had many issues as the starter. There haven't been many close games, but he proved himself in a big way against the Raiders. He persevered and he held tough, and credit to Shanahan and this scheme and that offense. They've been able to get them through this trying period, because the biggest thing with me and the Niners over the years has been quarterback play. And at this point, I don't believe the quarterback is the most intrinsic part to their winning or losing. I think it's Shanahan, and if Shanahan has exercised his demons, they're the scariest team in the NFL. If Shanahan can finally not get in his own way come playoff time or these massive games and just hold leads, I don't see how they lose going into the Super Bowl. DeMeco Ryans is going to have a job as a head coach within the next 3 years. It's just how it's going to work. As good as Belichick has been as the head coach, his factory of coordinators has turned into just this off-brand Belichickian great value type thing. Kyle Shanahan, his disciples get jobs more than anybody else I've seen over the last 5 years. And the thing is, most of his guys are pretty legit. You look over at the New York Jets, they just got eliminated from playoff contention. No one expected them to be in this place, even with Zach Wilson being this bad. Look at the Dolphins. Everybody thought they were going to be good, but they were great for streaks of this season. And that's more than the Dolphins have had over the last decade. So we've got 2 guys coming out of SF that Shanahan's been the direct boss of, and I think it's going to continue. And shout out the Niners for pulling this one out. Obviously, it could be a bit of playing down to competition. The Raiders have been a disappointment through and through all year, but 22 for 35 for 2 touchdowns and a pick. It helps whenever you have the weapons, but you still have to hit them. And until Purdy starts missing, I'm not going to bet against the Niners. But speaking of betting against things, Austin, that brings us to Derek Carr. The Raiders have pushed their chips in. They have shown the world what they are thinking of doing. Will they do it? Who knows? But
he has to be gone. He has to be. There's no.
I don't know how you do it. The sole like a top the three reasons Devonte Adams went to the Raiders involve Derek Carr, money, and he likes the Raiders as an organization. But I think DC superseded all of it. Devonte Adams could have went anywhere he wanted. He chose to go to the Raiders to a certain extent. Like I get it, the Packers had to trade him, but Devonte Adams was open to playing for the Raiders because of Derek Carr. And I fault the front office for paying him so much money. I get how the salary caps work, and I understand the market for quarterbacks. But they didn't have to give him that big of an extension. There was ways to play this.
That's true. It's just
because if Carr isn't the quarterback, I expect Devonte Adams to demand a trade. I just think that's what's going to happen.
I mean, they should trade him. This shit needs to tear down. What do they have outside of Derek Carr and Devonte Adams and Max Crosby outside of like real weapons?
Well, Josh Jacobs is a free agent, and they're not going to pay him big money to keep playing. They've been running him into the ground year after year. This Bengals-Bills game is...
Yeah, they've been administering CPR. That's how bad it is right now. So I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know what to say about it. It's terrifying.
That is.
If this game gets stopped tonight, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
No, I don't know how you.
I don't really know how you play after this. I really don't know how the Bills play after this. Even if Damar Hamlin is ends up being okay, which obviously right now he's not. He's not okay. But even if he's able to get resuscitated, is what it sounds like, and getting in an ambulance and in the hospital, how do the Bills play another down of football today, or tomorrow, or the next day? Like what? I don't know what the NFL is going to do, because this is probably one of the most terrifying things that's ever happened in the history that I could think of off the top of my head. Like, guys have been hurt, guys have broken legs, but this is different. This is life and death. It seems like. But okay.
Prayers to Damar Hamilton. Holy shit.
So I kind of said it yesterday with Derek Carr, is that he hasn't had the same head coach for more than 2.5 seasons. John Gruden's been the longest guy there before that whole debacle. He's never had a defense better than 20th in the league. And I'm not defending Derek Carr as this like savior and this and that. He broke his leg during their playoff run on a play he shouldn't have even been a part of. He shouldn't have been dropping back on. None of that. Derek Carr shouldn't have been a part of the game anymore at that point against the Colts. And for him to arguably, probably this is one of his worst seasons, if not his worst season. I would have to go back and look at all the stats, but he's turning over the ball a lot, even with better weapons. Granted, Darren Waller's been hurt a lot this year, but his line is not very good. His defense isn't very good. And look what Jared Stidham did. And it's this hype that we do all the time. Jared Stidham will fall back down to earth. He'll not be good. And the Raiders will figure out what they need to do again. It's Mike White. It's Gardner Minshew. We go through this shit every single time a backup comes in. Granted, not every single backup performs, but this is kind of what we're going to go through again. But Jared Stidham went 365 for 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions against one of the best defenses in the league. Devontae Adams, 7 catches for 153 and 2 touchdowns. Scored 34 points. They lost by 3. This is what Derek Carr's dealt with his entire life. Put up 30, give up 31. Put up 34, give up 37. It doesn't matter. And Jared Stidham threw a pick in overtime for the game not to matter. And Robbie Gould chips it in and wins after missing a field goal that he probably should have made because the defense let him go down the field in like a minute. Like the Raiders have never given Carr something to work with on both sides of the ball. They've never felt like a true contender ever.
Yeah, the biggest thing about the Derek Carr era of football, for me is that it died in 2018. Any semblance of that team actually competing and trying to compete, at least in my eyes, was done whenever they traded Khalil Mack. Because there's one thing in the NFL that I think should be abundantly clear. If you're trading a superstar, you cannot expect to get superstar talent back for them, especially whenever it comes to draft picks. And Carr going down with the broken leg was their best shot to compete in that 2016 season, if I'm correct, or it was 2017. But the biggest thing is what the Raiders had with the Cooper, Carr, Jared Cook, Khalil Mack. That team was good, borderline great at times. The defense had an identity. Derek Carr was young. Derek Carr had weapons. They lost that, and it seems that every other decision post Khalil Mack was one step forward, three steps back, and everything just wasn't done in a way to help Derek Carr. He's never had a defense finish above 25th in the league for his career. Every single star receiver he's had in his career either gets traded. The circumstances surrounding his career, you couldn't make it up for a television script, essentially. Antonio Brown didn't play a single regular season game with him because his helmet didn't fit right. Like, you can't make these things up. And Carr has been class for most of it. He's bled for this team. He's cried for this team. He's been everything this team could ask for. He literally took the bull by the horns last year with the John Gruden scandal, the Henry Ruggs situation, and he led this team to the playoffs. And how do they reward him? They brought in his favorite teammate from his college days, and they gave him the worst head coach the NFL's seen in the last 25 years. I'm talking in terms of, like, grand scheme. We knew who Josh McDaniels was. We didn't know Nathaniel Hackett as a coach. We didn't know of these other individuals that hadn't coached at the NFL level before. But McDaniels has shown his colors. We know who he is. He coached in Denver, and he sucked. And he's coaching now. He's currently coaching for the Raiders. And guess what, Austin? You can finish this sentence. He sucks. And it's unfortunate. I get what they're doing. It's a lot of money, and it's only a $5 million cap hit if he doesn't get hurt to end the year, and they can just cut ties. I expect them to trade him. But optically, this looks terrible for the Raiders organization. I don't know how they're going to move forward. I don't know how they can get a fan base to root for them moving forward if Derek Carr's not the quarterback. Because if Derek Carr goes, Devontae's shortly going to follow after. And if Devontae's gone and Derek's gone, why would you bring back Josh Jacobs? There's just no point. Chandler Jones is on a big money deal. Max Crosby's on a big money deal. This team should have blown it up after Derek Carr's leg went down. Because they already blew it up by trading Khalil Mack and trading Amari Cooper. They should have just cut ties with the other guys because they weren't trying to compete at the top level.
And there's always been this half of the fan base that says we hate Carr and the other half of the fan base that defends him till the ends of time. So it really, you're going to have a split fan base regardless of the decision because they've been split Carr's entire tenure. I heard somebody call him a system quarterback, and I was like, cool, which system? I would love to know what system Derek Carr is a part of.
So many head coaches. Like, that's the biggest thing. There's no culture.
So
he was in Oakland for like 5 years, and now he's been in Vegas for like 3. It's like, not only did you relocate the man, you give him a new coach every 2 years. His coordinators are constantly changing. The first time he's had a playoff appearance, you fired the guy that led him there. Like, Rich Bisaccia did a great job last year. I get it. He might not be an NFL head coach, but to fire the guy that led you to the playoffs and within like plays of beating the Super Bowl contender from the AFC, the Bisaccia firing for me was the nail in the coffin. I was like, I don't get how as an organization you let go of the guy that led you to the playoffs and arguably almost beat the AFC's top contender from last year. Like, Bisaccia did everything he could, and I just one step forward and 3 steps back. They had something going, and they just toss it. There's no foresight to anything down the road. It's all just, we need to win right now. Maybe that's Mike Mayock's fault. Maybe that's Mark Davis. I can't tell you who it is. Their slogan used to be just win, baby. And it still is, according to the Davis family. But what have you won in the last 50 years? Genuinely.
Yeah.
Maybe like 1 Super Bowl? It's crazy. You can have mantras, but if you're not actually holding your organization to that mantra, what's the point?
Trying to see what's going on with this game, but it looks like
I don't get how they expect him to play after that.
It is the announcement just now is that it's temporarily suspended. It's the right call. 100%. Not close. So
temporarily, so we're not going to have this game's not going to finish tonight.
Maybe. It sounds like they're going to go to the locker room and maybe try to get themselves together, but that's the news right now, which we'll see. Okay.
So if because basically if they can't go tonight, they're going to probably reschedule it for tomorrow, I'm assuming? Or?
You would really feel like they don't have a choice because
or they just call the score at what it was with 5:58 in the first quarter.
No, you can't do that.
The Bills lose the 1 seed. That would be
imagine that.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah, if they don't play tonight, they'll have to play tomorrow because they need ample time to rest and their games matter. If like one of them was clinched in a certain spot, then maybe like it gets weird.
They're
but
both
like
division champs as of right now.
But they're both fighting for the 1 seed. Like the Bengals winning changes everything.
The Bengals winning makes the Chiefs the 1 seed for me.
Correct.
I don't see the Chiefs losing. I see the Chiefs. Yeah. Speaking of the Chiefs, fuck it. Let's get into the Chiefs. Broncos Chiefs, Mr. Unlimited. Welcome back, buddy. Russell Wilson had 3 touchdowns. Add that to the bathroom tally. He's finally at 13 passing on the year, which beats 12 bathrooms in his house. Mahomes is the MVP. As fun as it was talking shit and saying Aaron Rodgers is better than Mahomes 2 years ago, which panned out for me, at quarterback there is a distinguishable gap between Mahomes and everybody else. Jalen Hurts was a great pick to start the year. He's had an amazing year. And for everyone that's saying, well, him not playing and them losing 2 games means he's more valuable. No, it doesn't. The MVP in the National Football League pertains to players that are playing. If it was about most impact on a team that has the best record, Carson Wentz in 2017 wins the award. Or 2018, whatever year it was. Patrick Mahomes is the MVP. This should not be a debate. Justin Jefferson will win Offensive Player of the Year. Possibly because of this last game. Who knows if Tyreek Hill breaks Calvin Johnson's record with Skylar Thompson. Who knows? But the Chiefs are the scariest team in football right now. The Broncos really gave it to them for a good portion of this game. But this Chiefs defense, it bends, but it does not break. As bad as the secondary can look at times, Frank Clark and Chris Jones, 2 of the better rushing tandems in all of football. Trent McDuffie and, what's his name? Their safety. Got him in the offseason. Give me the name. Regardless, this is a defense that is Justin Reed. This is a defense that is riddled with NFL caliber players. You don't have to love them, but you're going to like him if you're a Chiefs fan. Willie Gay Jr., Trent McDuffie, Juan Thornhill, L'Jarius Sneed, Leo Chenal has been a great rookie for this defense at linebacker. George Karlaftis, one of the steals of the draft this year. This is a team that addressed issues on the defense while also not completely tanking their offense. You can't guard everybody on the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes knows that, and that is why the Chiefs are so dangerous. 29 for 42, 328, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. The Bengals figured something out last postseason. I don't know how plausible it's going to be to replicate that this postseason just because of how consistent the defense can be at times and how dangerous the offense still is. They put up 27, and Travis Kelce had 43 yards. It does not matter. Whenever you have an offense that is completing passes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pass catchers, including the man himself, Patrick Mahomes, it's hard to contend. And pair that with Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon being greater than the sum of their parts. Offensively, they're at the very top, and defensively, they're far more middle of the pack than they've been whenever they've been a league bottom defense. They can hang offensively, and their defense will be able to slow down top offenses to the point where they should be able to win out.
Yeah, well,
you think the Broncos wish they had the 3rd overall pick still?
Can you imagine if they did?
CJ Stroud would probably look pretty cool in the orange and blue. I'm happy he's not going to because I'm a Chargers fan, but yeah.
I mean, Seattle's loving life right now, the way they keep going. But yeah, Mahomes is MVP. It was cool for Hurts for a second to be in that conversation, given his rushing ability. But the 2 missed games is pretty much it. There's nobody in the vicinity of Patrick Mahomes at this point in terms of what he's done this season in a rebuild year. So a rebuilding team without Tyreek Hill winning the division with Patrick Mahomes, that's a feat. It's tough. It's tough out there in Kansas City. I don't know how they do it. But Jaco and McKinnon have been really nice. Obviously, they have found their roles and fit into it perfectly. And like you said, Kelsey did nothing this game, and they still won by a lot. So once Travis Kelsey gets involved, and maybe tries to win me a fantasy championship next year, we'll see. But I guess they only won by 3. But Mahomes threw for 328 and 3 touchdowns. Like, what? They didn't even have to run the ball. Kadarius Toney was their leading receiver. Like, what is going on? Sky Moore got involved. Sky Moore got 3 catches for 33 yards. We haven't seen Sky Moore all season.
Yeah, no, it's the perfect storm for all the shit we give Kyler Murray for Cliff Kingsbury. It's like the best players tend to play for the better coaches in the league. It's what made Brady and Belichick so damn good, and it's what we're seeing with Brady and Todd Bowles. Granted, Brady's advanced in age to the point where if he's slowing down a bit, it's to be expected. But the Mahomes-Reed relationship it's as symbiotic as any in the NFL. Andy Reid has been a Hall of Fame adjacent coach for a bulk of his career, whether it be in Philadelphia or with Alex Smith in Kansas City. He gets the most out of the weapons and the players that he coaches. And for once, he had a player that's going to get the most out of Andy Reid. Because he made Alex Smith a Pro Bowler for years and years and years. And Patrick Mahomes learned under Alex Smith and took those lessons and now is working alongside Andy Reid and making this Chiefs offense arguably the most impressive over the last half decade. There's a reason why they are in the AFC Championship year after year after year. It's Mahomes' 5th season in the league, which he didn't play in his first year, if I'm correct. His rookie year, he played 1 game. He's got 5,000-yard passing seasons. There's 3 quarterbacks to ever pass for 5,000 yards. Breeze did it 5 times. Brady's done it twice. Mahomes has done it twice. And Mahomes still has like 10 years on his contract. Whatever preconceived notions you have about the record books, throw them out. We're going to have to start rewriting them things. Because as great as the quarterback play is in the league, Patrick Mahomes is just a step ahead. Yep. And I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon.
It's Mahomes and everybody else, and including Josh Allen.
Yeah. Herbert, Burrow, Allen, those 3 are amazing players, incredibly talented. Mahomes is... I hate to be like a simpleton or a casual and say, he's just better. Like, it's that simple, whether it's the eye test, stats, winning. It's everything. I wasn't alive for Jordan's dominance in the 90s, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs and Mahomes pull off a run where he wins 6 championships in like a 15-year period. Yeah. He's that good of a signal caller.
I mean, to give him 6 to 8 appearances in the Super Bowl is not far-fetched. He already has 2.
Not at all. Not at all. And the thing is, even
Brady's been to 10, 12, 11.
Even with the AFC improving, it's like Brady did it with the best coach ever in Bill Belichick and middling help in terms of the weapons around him, but elite defenses. Yeah. Mahomes is doing it with he did it with elite talent on offense and semi to good defenses. Now he's doing it with Travis Kelsey's a Hall of Famer. Everybody else is above average. And his defense is still the way it's been. So, I don't know how it's going to age, but so far, the Chiefs are my favorite in the AFC, unless they get caught by one of the hotter teams coming out of the wild card, because momentum's key in the playoffs, but I think Mahomes laughs in the face of that shit. He's fortunate, he's lucky, he's talented. Those are 3 things you can't coach.
Yeah, I mean, as simple as that. Speaking of Brady and Mike Evans, Mike Evans out here winning championships.
This is the best Brady's looked since, like, their Super Bowl. Brady was masterful this game.
Mike Evans, 10 for 207 and 3 touchdowns. Brady, 34 for 45, 432 and 3 touchdowns. They had to play their hearts out so Carolina didn't take the division lead, and Brady showed up when Brady needed to. This is why I'm terrified to play them in the playoffs.
Sam Darnold, for all the shit I've given him over the years, he played a good game at NFL football.
He balled.
Their
He
rushing
balled.
attack sucks.
It's
I think
terrible.
if the Panthers could have done anything on the ground, this game might have panned out differently. Because Tampa Bay dominated time of possession, and they don't do that a lot this time of the year. Their rushing game sucks. But in a miraculous effort, the Panthers' rushing game was just as bad, which is insane. Deonta Foreman, congratulations on being good against every third opponent. DJ Moore had a big day. Shee Smith made an appearance, but yeah. Guarding Mike Evans is important. Shouting that out to every team the Bucs face moving forward. And even though Mike Evans had a monster day, it could have been Chris Godwin the same. He had 120 yards himself, just didn't score the touchdowns. It's death, taxes, and Brady in the playoffs. I wouldn't want to see him as a team in the playoffs. Granted, their defense is far worse than it's been over the years. They're going to have to play like this to win games in the playoffs.
For sure.
Over the year, they haven't proven to me that they're going to be consistent week in and week out. But if this is a sign of things to come and this is them starting to hit their stride, it'll take a lot of Bowles clock management to get them out.
Yeah, Todd Bowles is the biggest factor here. I can't wait for Todd Bowles versus Mike McCarthy. What a battle. What a battle of two brains. I don't know what kind of brains, but they're brains. But Sam Darnold has pretty much shown that he's going to be competing for the spot next season. I think he's done at least that. 341, 3 touchdowns and a pick is not too bad. If they literally had any running game whatsoever, like you said, they could probably win this game. And their defense, who's been really good this season, including pass rush, which has been Tampa Bay's problem because their line is so beat up. They were able just to get out and hit the home runs that Mike Evans really hasn't been hitting most of this year.
Another big thing, J.C. Horn is officially on the IR. His season is done. He's been the biggest impact player on this defense, aside from a guy in Brian Burns. You'd love for a J.C. Horn to be out there to guard Mike Evans. That could have affected the outcome. Shout out to Panthers. Another year, another missed playoff opportunity. Still paying for the sins of that 2015 Panthers team. But yeah, congrats to the Bucs on making the playoffs. They will be that Beast Quake Seattle team to some fan base somewhere, because you can't bet against Brady, and the weapons are still there. It's just a matter of that defense can hold, and if Todd Bowles can actually coach for a full 120 minutes.
Can we talk about a coach who can go for 60 minutes, 120 minutes? That'd be wild.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin's going to get away with it again, isn't he? Mike Tomlin was 2-6 at one point. He has the Steelers at 8-8 with a chance to go to the playoffs and have yet another consecutive season of finishing at 500 or better. With Kenny Pickett, Deontay Johnson has no touchdowns, a rookie wide receiver, Najee Harris basically not showing up the first few weeks of the season. I mean, granted, Baltimore's offense is god-awful without Lamar Jackson. I think that's the biggest thing here. Tyler Huntley had his glimpses last year when they were going for 2 and trying to beat some guys, but good Lord, Tyler Huntley and Greg Roman cannot put a damn thing together. Tyler Huntley went 14 for 21, 130 and a touchdown and a pick, and 100 of those yards went to Mark Andrews. Granted, Mark Andrews is really the only skilled position they have out there catching passes. They're trying to rely on DeMarcus Robinson and Deshaun Jackson to catch passes for them. This is the team that traded Marquise Brown. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I don't get it for either side.
Pittsburgh is good. Just point blank, Pittsburgh's a really good team. Really good in scheme of who they are in their own division. Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches in football. If it weren't for Bill Belichick, I think he'd be the best coach over the last 15 years. His teams don't lose. Big thing with them, it's going to be interesting to see how Kenny Pickett ages with this team, but I think he's going to be the starter moving forward for at least the next couple of years. Pittsburgh takes care of their guys a lot of the time, and they keep guys around. That's why Mason Rudolph has been a backup for the last 5 years. But if we saw Mike Tomlin keep this team alive with a guy in Devlin Hodges overtime, it feels a little dumb or foolish to have doubted them this hard this season. Granted, it took a back-to-back season from hell for the Ravens. At 10-6, this Ravens team has overachieved, for lack of better terms. J.K. Dobbins is not what we hoped he would be coming off of that injury. He still doesn't look completely right. Tyler Huntley is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. Mark Andrews has been completely disappointing for most of this season, and I think they're going to have to internally look on ways to improve the coordination of this offense. You can't fire John Harbaugh, but Greg Roman, something has to happen. Something has to happen.
Get him out. Get him out. I mean, they've had a playoff spot for a couple weeks now, I believe. So, like, granted, yes, they probably would have liked to win the AFC North, but at the cost of Lamar Jackson's health, I would much rather Lamar Jackson be ready for wherever they go in the playoffs, whether it be to Buffalo, Cincy, Kansas City, or I don't think they can get the 6th seed at this, or the 5th seed at this point. So they're not going to play Jacksonville or Tennessee. So they're going to have a tough task regardless of where they go, but they need Lamar Jackson to be healthy in order to compete. It's very obvious. And Kenny Pickett at the beginning of the year was turning over the ball a lot. And one thing that's been kind of consistent with them winning these games is him not turning the ball over. 15 for 27, $168 and a touchdown is not a pretty stat line. But that touchdown came late against Najee Harris, and that's when it mattered the most.
The biggest thing about this is a team that gave up a bunch of big leads to start the year, and the defense was just inconsistent. Greg Roman and the staff on that offensive unit, including Tyler Huntley, have let down the fan base because for the first, 8 weeks of the season, they gave up 20-plus points per week most weeks, which, to be fair, but the biggest problem with the Ravens right now is since November 7th, the most points they've given up in a single game has been 28 to the Jags. And they lost on, I believe it was a missed field goal by Tucker from like a bunch of yards away. Or that might have just been Lawrence showing up. But since that game, they've given up 9, 14, 13, 17, and 16. They've lost 2 of those games. The offense has to be better.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me the team can't score 20 points? Like, this team is not on the same wavelength organizationally, and if I'm Lamar, I don't know why I'd want to re-sign. They're going to tag him. There's no way he's leaving this offseason. But if they tag him, I don't know when he plays. He needs the extension or he's not going to play. And the tectonic plates of the AFC North have shifted. And Baltimore feels like they are really skidding towards something that could be cataclysmic, to say in the least. Because I had doubts about the Cincinnati Bengals. They're gone. Zach Taylor isn't a great coach. The players are insane. The scheme is insane. They are good. They are going to be good for the next 5 to 10 years. Joe Burrow is going to be there. Jamar Chase is going to be there. Yep. T. Higgins should be there. Joe Mixon, they will replace him. And if they keep Burrow off of his back and the defense can just retool, they're Casey Light to a certain description. It is crazy how fast things change and how badly you can be impacted. Because Baltimore went from running this division for the next 10 years to being on the outside looking in about 2 off seasons.
Yeah, and who knows what you get out of the Browns next season if Deshaun Watson returns to any form. And the Steelers are always going to be a problem, and you could easily be the worst team in this division. You could probably finish 8-9 and be 4th in that division. That's how good that division is going to be. They're going to beat the crap out of each other. So the Ravens are already in, but since the Steelers won, they can, let's see, I have it up right here. If they beat the Browns and the Dolphins and Jets both lose, Dolphins, Oh, Dolphins, Jets, and Patriot. No. They need a lot of help, is what I'm saying. They have to win the Browns, and they need a Dolphins loss. Oh, a Dolphins and Patriots loss is what they need. So the Steelers still need a lot to get in, but I like the way they've looked the end of this season. Kenny Pickett has looked somewhat serviceable. Najee Harris has looked like what we thought he was going to be at the beginning of the season. In real life and fantasy football, the dude was drafted extremely high and let a lot of people down, but he's been much, much better. So I think Najee Harris will be just fine moving forward. I think Kenny Pickett will be okay moving forward. He still has some good weapons in Pickens and Deontay Johnson. And it's kind of just going to be shoring up the defense. How many games can TJ Watt play? Because the stats between the Steelers with TJ Watt and the Steelers without TJ Watt is unbelievably staggering. Yeah. It is insane how different that defense is with and without TJ Watt. And you don't see that a whole lot. So the health of TJ Watt really is going to matter for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. I think the Steelers are in a very advantageous situation. As much as I wasn't sold on Kenny Pickett being drafted, he seems like a Steelers kind of guy. He seems like somebody that Mike Tomlin is going to get the most out of because he tends to do that. The offensive line is the biggest concern right now. You have Minka, you have TJ, you've got some good interior defenders, you have some linebackers. Keep Kenny off of his back, and I think this offense could get back to what Ben was doing over the last couple of years because Ben was able to get it out quick. Kenny's not that accustomed to the league yet. And if you get a better line, Najee is going to be better. Harris will be better. They improve the offensive line. This team will be competing, arguably for wild card spots, but they are going to be a thorn in a lot of team sides.
Yep. Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley are going to get somewhat paid in the offseason, right? They showed up and beat the crap out of the Colts. Saquon Barkley being healthy was what we were all hoping for, and it's what we got. And
it's been on my bingo card since 2018.
Granted, Saquon didn't show up super hard this game, 12 for 58, 2 catches for -5 yards. But Daniel Jones, 177 and 2 touchdowns, 11 carries for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Brian Daboll has this team locked at the number 6 seed. This team is going to do something. Now, they probably will have to face, it sounds like, Minnesota or San Francisco. Seems like the most likely scenario at this point. Unless Dallas takes the East but doesn't get the first seed, it still can get fucked up. But I don't love the chances of the Giants where they are, where whoever they have to play, whichever division winner they have to play. But they have one of the biggest turnarounds from last season. Brian Daboll has done magic. Daniel Jones has earned himself another year or two. Saquon Barkley has earned himself a decent payday, and they can just shore up the secondary and get some wide receivers and keep moving forward. I'm not going to say a damn thing about the Colts. I don't know who their quarterback is next season. If they can get Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo, things change for me, and a healthy Jonathan Taylor because they have a good defense. But I don't know. Start with whoever you want.
Shit. The only thing I can really say about this game is it comes down to the coaching. For me, Coach of the Year is wrapped after this win. I think Brian Daboll should be the NFL's Coach of the Year, and Agreed. I don't think it should be that close. Nick Sirianni has done a great thing in Philadelphia. His talent has carried him to a lot of wins. We're seeing it now with Gardner Minshew playing 2 games and them losing back-to-back games. Sirianni's been great in what he is asked to do. He is not on the level of Kyle Shanahan. It's just not how that works. Brian Daboll, on the other hand, is an offensive-minded coach coming from Buffalo, the man that built the house that Josh Allen resides in, alongside Sean McDermott. Obviously, Josh Allen is still Josh Allen, but Brian Daboll has unlocked something in New York that we haven't seen since Odell Beckham was taking pictures on speedboats. And they've exercised that demon. They're in the playoffs again. If you would have told me this New York Giants team was going to be in the playoffs at the start of the year, I would have said, damn, are you from Manhattan or Brooklyn? Like, where are you from? Because you have to be a New York Giants fan to believe that statement. I don't care that they came shot out of a cannon. I don't care that they kind of lapsed wins and kind of like were taking on water for a chunk of this season. The fact that they're in the dance it's all it takes. And I'm not saying the Giants are going to win the Super Bowl. Crazier shit's happened. Eli Manning took this team twice on wild card runs to win the full thing. Daniel Jones is not Eli Manning. But crazier shit's happened, and I think this Giants team has done nothing but overachieve. Kenny Golladay still doesn't play football for this team. I don't know why. I don't know how. He's just taking their money. Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins have been the best players on this team. Isaiah Hodgins was a practice squad player 4 weeks ago. Like, this is how good Daboll's system has been. Saquon is protected. Daniel Jones is trusted. I read somewhere that Daboll actually had some like tank plays in the OTA books for Daniel Jones. Like, he would run tank plays to see how Daniel Jones would actually respond, to see if he was mentally tough. Clearly, he passed those tests. Will Daniel Jones get a Kyler Murray contract? No way in Sam hell. Will he get a 3 or 4 year deal? Will he get a 3-year deal worth pretty good money? Yes. Will Saquon Barkley be back? You bet your sweet ass. This team will run it back next year, and this team will be better next year, because for as good as they've been, they have been incredibly hurt. So kudos to the Giants. Egg in your face, Indianapolis. There's a reason why I picked Tennessee over you to start the year, and you've done nothing but prove the point since. Jeff Saturday's not an NFL head coach. If Jim Harbaugh is taking calls from the NFL, he should be coaching them come next year. And if anyone's best guess is better than mine, they're going to have Derek Carr or Will Levis as their starting quarterback next year. And I'm hoping they just draft Levis, because Carr is cool, Carr is great, but so was Rivers, so was Wentz, and they bit off too much with Matt Ryan. You can't keep just trading draft capital to bring in a guy that's a marginal improvement. Just draft your own guy and develop him. Yeah. And it's just two teams that are in it's night
and go get a head coach.
The score reflects where these organizations are at. The Colts are the Colts are literally crashing in front of us, and the Giants are ascending in a way that wasn't expected.
Yeah, for the Colts, I think drafting obviously would be the best option for them to get Will Levis, or I don't think CJ Stroud will fall that far. But Will Levis will probably be the next best guy off the board after Stroud. And for the coach of the year, it has to be Brian Daboll. He took a 4-13 team to the number 6 seed in the NFC East. What else do you have to do? Nick Sirianni turned a playoff team into a playoff team.
Yeah,
I don't
want to give the award away. Give it to the GM.
Exactly. Give it to Howie Roseman then, if you're giving it.
The Eagles deserve an organizational award, sure. Like, in terms of like GM, coach, players, like, they are the best team in football this year.
Yeah,
for lack of better terms, they have been start to finish, unless they blow this next game, and then boom, Cowboys win the division. But yeah, Sirianni won this award if they would lose one game on the year. Hell, even 2. But, yeah, no. Shout out the Giants. For as bad as their offensive pieces are, and the Colts' defense is not good, don't get me wrong, Yannick Ngakoue is on the IR. They've officially given up. They put up 38 points on this Colts defense, and their defense is scoring too. Like, 24 points, regardless of who you're playing in a quarter, is impressive. Yeah. And just hats off to the Giants. If I were a Giants fan, I'd be over the moon.
Okay, so we did get a little bit distracted tonight with Monday Night Football situations. So got 15 minutes left, so I'll get to the 2 things that we could talk about in full. So I'll let you talk about your Chargers. You're locked into a playoff spot. You beat up on the Rams. So just tell me how you feel about your squad moving forward in a real life fantasy perspective, however you want to see. You don't know where you're going yet, but how do you feel?
Foot on the gas. This team cannot afford to lose next week. This is the hottest team in football. And we saw last year that the hottest team in football means a lot. Cincy took that little streak and stretched that bitch out as far as it would go. So the Chargers just have to keep their foot on the gas. There is no resting players. There is no playing for tomorrow. This Chargers team is playing for today, and they're playing for keeps. Herbert went 21 for 28 for 212 and 2 touchdowns. Extremely efficient football. If we can keep doing this, we are one of the harder teams to beat in the league. This Rams ragtag group of third stringers has been a fun story over the last couple of weeks. The MVP, I believe, was Baker Mayfield of that game. the Rams were never playing for this year after Matthew Stafford went down along with Cooper Kupp. Herbert had a great day. Eckler proved once again why he's one of the top 5 backs in football. 122 on the ground on 10 carries with 2 scores. And the team's healthy. Everett scored a touchdown. Williams had 94 yards. Keenan Allen had 60. And the defense is healthy. Joey Bosa is back. Khalil Mack is playing well. Michael Davis has cemented himself as the top corner on this defense. And if Brandon Staley's unit continues to give up less than 15 points, I don't know who's going to beat us. Granted, they have played a stretch of football against some subpar offenses in the grand scheme. I'm not going to sit here and say we're beating the best teams in the league.
Yeah.
But the defense has been good over stretches, and they have not been healthier than they have been right now. And if a guy like Rashawn Slater is back for the playoffs, I'm picking the Chargers to come out of the AFC. I know, seeing is believing, but if they're fully healthy and we have our franchise left tackle back, it would take a lot to beat this team, and by a lot, I mean KC playing their best ball. Because the Bills are beat up. The Bengals are streaky. The Ravens shouldn't be a playoff team at this point. And the Jaguars or the Titans, while the Jaguars are dangerous, I feel like if they get in this year, they're still a year away. They have way more. They have the
worst defense among all playoff teams, and that's
exactly.
Not close.
And as good as Trevor Lawrence has been, his weapons are going to be better next year, and I think that's the year we see a jump come playoff time for him.
Yeah.
But you let Justin, and that's the biggest thing too. We saw it last year with the Bengals. Everyone was like, the Bengals are cool, and Joe Burrow's had a great year, but nobody saw it come playoff time. Give Justin Herbert the shot. We've seen him do it time and time again in the regular season. Over the first 3 years of his career, he has more game-winning drives or game-tying drives than anybody in the league. To sit here and think that won't translate come playoff time, I understand it, but I'd put my money on the guy. He's high pressure. He's done it before. And if the defense is going to cooperate, this team is going to be dangerous.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. For the Rams, they are what they are. But getting Joey Bosa back is the biggest thing for the Chargers moving forward. We already know how dynamic their offense can be. Sometimes it has struggled here and there has been troubles with second half adjustments. That's going to be kind of my biggest thing for the Chargers moving forward is which Staley are we going to get? Like, how many balls to the walls calls is he going to make?
Big thing for us, too. We scored our first third quarter touchdown in like 10 weeks this week. 17 in the second quarter, 7 in the third, 7 in the fourth. So
that's crazy.
If we can put up points every quarter, we're going to be a hard team to get out regardless, whether it's field goals, touchdowns. And a big thing, Cameron Dicker, that dude has been legit.
Dicker the kicker, baby.
Kicking has been an issue and special teams have been an issue, but we've shorn those things up over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
Sorry to Dustin Hopkins. I hope he's healing well and I miss him. But
my man laid his life out for you guys on Monday night.
Ride the hot leg, and there'll be a competition to start next year. But Bolt gang or don't bang.
Okay, and then we'll finish off the last 10 minutes with the Minnesota Vikings and the Packers. I hate the term frauds. I really do. I'm not going to sit here and say the Vikings are frauds. They are 11-0 in one possession games. You know what that means? That means they win. That means they win close games. Saying they have a negative point differential at 12-14. Yeah, because they've gotten their heads kicked in. And newsflash, teams lose to bad teams at times. The Chiefs lost to the Colts. The Cowboys and the Chiefs almost lost to the Texans. Bad teams beat good teams all the time. And I'm not calling the Packers a bad team. I'm just saying that calling the Vikings frauds is ridiculous after what we have seen this team do all season. They are 12-4 for a reason because Kirk is balling out. They have the best wide receiver in the game, and their defense does usually just enough to keep them in a game and let their high-powered offense get through it. Now, Kirk threw 3 picks. Obviously, that's going to be a problem. When your high-powered offense isn't going along, that's what's going to happen. You're going to get your head kicked in. They had no running game whatsoever. Madison had 8 carries for 38 yards. Dalvin Cook had 9 carries for 27 yards. Their leading receiver was Jalen Naylor. Let me tell you, it sucks for them to lose because seeding matters the most. I don't think you want to go to San Francisco and go to whoever wins the NFC East. Being the 3rd seed is not a good spot. I I would hate to be a road team in the divisional and the championship round if I were to make it that far. But I mean, it is what it is. They kind of are where they are now, and they're most likely going to have to go to San Francisco or Philadelphia at this point. But they have the eye-powered offense to keep up with anybody. We saw that the Niners defense is human. We saw that Philadelphia's defense is bending and breaking to a certain extent. And if that high-powered offense can outshoot Jalen Hurts, then so be it. And they can do it. I think they beat whoever they face, whether it be, facing the Packers is going to be really interesting if they do. But if they face Seattle or Detroit or Green Bay, I think they can beat either one of those teams in Minnesota. Or if they get the Giants, I think they can beat the Giants. And they have no shot at playing Dallas at this point. Dallas is locked into going to Tampa Bay. The 5 seed is locked into going to Tampa Bay at this point, is basically what I'm saying. But props to the Packers for running the table and doing it yet again. They're at 8-8 and they control their own destiny. I believe if Seattle has to lose, I think the way this goes. Let me see here. Let's see. Oh no, the Packers win and they're in.
Yep, they control their destiny.
That is crazy. So the Seahawks win. The Seahawks get in with a win and a Packers loss. Okay. Yeah, they control their own destiny. And they were 2-6 at one point? And after they beat Dallas, something changed?
Biggest credit to Matt LaFleur here, dude. I talked a lot of spit at him to start this year whenever the Packers came out dead on arrival. Kudos to Rodgers and this team, and the defense finally figured it out. I thought the Packers were going to be pretty damn good this year based upon the defense they've constructed over the years. Jair Alexander proved to each and every one of us that the guy's a top 3 corner this week. Justin Jefferson's been cooking everybody. It didn't matter what your name was, what your number was, where you went to school. Didn't matter. He's been burning everyone. Jair Alexander and the Packers defense shut him down in a way that nobody has done since his days at LSU. It was his worst professional football game ever. And it came in the most important game of the Packers season. I think this Packers team is incredibly dangerous. Like we've all been talking about, well, Tampa's scary. Aaron Rodgers is terrifying. And I get it. They always lose in the playoffs. But is it ever really Aaron's fault at the end of the day? Like, I get it. He could have done more last year against the Niners. But there was a blocked field goal. There was a muffed punt. Like, there's always something else going on. And I give credit to Matt LaFleur. That is a guy who has coached his ass off, for lack of better terms. With a quarterback that seemed lethargic at times. With a team that can't seem to field competent wide receiver talent. And has been able to utilize A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones in ways that I think has been conducive to winning football games. While they may not be the favorite to win it all this year, I would not want to see them come playoff time. Rodgers is still a Hall of Fame quarterback, and I think he's still got juice in that tank. And Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, at this point, could be one of the better tandems at running back the NFL has in the playoffs. So Green Bay's scary. As much credit as they give to the Chargers, Green Bay's right behind them in terms of teams that have heat right now.
Yeah, they catch fire and they beat. It'll be interesting if Seattle wins because then the game becomes meaningless for Lions, but it's flexed to Sunday night, which I think is wrong. I felt like Tennessee and Jacksonville should have been Sunday night. Like I get their Saturday night, but if you want the game with the guaranteed implications, it should have been Tennessee and Jacksonville. But the NFL is what it is. So if the Packers can get it and go into the playoffs hot, they'll most likely face either Minnesota or San Francisco, which will be definitely interesting. The way the Packers and the Niners played last year, we'll see what special teams looks like. But for the Vikings, for me, they're 12-4. They've had the division for weeks. They got their asses kicked. It happens. They're not frauds. Could they be one and done? Sure. So will many other teams. Many other teams are going to be one and done after Wild Card Weekend. That's how the playoffs work. So, but like I said, we didn't get to every game tonight. We did get a little distracted from Damar Hamlin. Prayers up for Damar Hamlin. Last I heard, he has a pulse. He's at the hospital, so we'll hopefully get further updates. It I don't know if he had a heart attack or I don't know what's going on, but it's most likely that this game is done. I don't know what the NFL is going to do, and frankly, nothing else matters right now. But we'll see what happens with that. So if you're doing anything right now, say a prayer for Damar Hamlin, because that is easily the scariest thing I've seen on a football field, and it's not close.
Yeah, absolutely terrifying.
That's spooky. But I don't want to end on a sad note. So Devin, do you have anything that you want to NFL, anything like that you want to finish with?
Just thanks to everybody for tuning in throughout this season. We've had a lot of different hats that we've worn throughout the life of this podcast, and we've kind of found an identity that we're going to stick with moving forward, whether it be fantasy, NFL, college, draft rankings. We're moving forward with football in a way that I think is going to be conducive to not only your enjoyment, but the validation of Austin and myself. So I wanted to thank everybody for tuning in throughout the time that we've had together and, sticking with us. If you won your fantasy playoffs, congratulations. You started the players that scored the most points. At the end of the day, these players are human beings with lives and families and real stuff going on. Justin Jefferson doesn't care that you lost your fantasy championship, and at the end of the day, you shouldn't either. You shouldn't gamble money that you're not willing to lose, and you shouldn't let a game affect your day-to-day life. We appreciate you guys taking our advice and heeding our advice, and if you didn't heed it, that's fine, because at the end of the day, I'm not a wizard. Austin's not a witch. We can't tell you who's going to do what, but we can tell you what we believe might happen. From the bottom of our hearts, you can't predict injuries, and we appreciate every single one of you guys for tuning in weekly. And we're looking forward to a great offseason. I know Austin wants to start a Dynasty League. I know I'm going to have to start firing out rankings for once, but we have a lot of content coming up, and we got a lot of ideas we're looking forward to bringing out. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel,
dadgummit,
get on that, man. We've been here for a while now, and we like to hear from everybody. So I don't know about you, Austin, but that's all I've really got. Happy New Year to everybody. Hopefully everybody was safe and smart. Take care of yourselves. Be your best selves this year. We're going to try our best to be our best selves, but that's all I got.
I think I left my potion brewing now that I think about it.
My moon water. I have to get that.
Crap. That's gonna be a bigger problem. But like Devin said, we've had a lot of identities through this podcast, different sports. We love a lot of different sports, but simply it comes down to it that being on one is what people want the most, and it's what kind of keeps our minds driven on one thing. And like, love baseball, but if I can't cover it during the playoff time because football is just more prominent, then you have to, like a child, let it go. At 18, please don't let go of your child before they're an adult. Dear God, that is
let
not,
go of your children.
That is not the advice that I'm handing out. But like I said, it was about mid-season where we started it. So next season during this off season, we have a lot of content planned. We have fantasy 101 stuff that if you're just getting into fantasy football or want to learn more about it, we're going to do shows for that. We're going to do different types of rankings for Dynasty. In redraft, we'll tell you what who you should go after early and beyond. The draft is always going to be huge. Draft profiles that we can come out with, top 10, top 20 guys.
We're gonna mock it for sure. I love mock drafts. I live for them.
It's going to be football 24/7, 365 days a year, and 366 during the leap year because we don't skip a day. Follow us on Twitter at TMSM Podcast, on Instagram, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're always making some shorts, once or twice a week, some little stuff here and there. We're always here for questions if you need answers. But other than that, start the guys that score the most points in fantasy football. Is a skill game where the better player always wins.
And don't forget to visit our Spotify page. Every live stream we do gets ported audio-wise over to the helpful platform over on Spotify. If you prefer to listen, then look at my mug for 2 hours a week. But if you're playing in championships this Sunday, we might see you then. I don't know if Austin wants to do a show this Sunday. I'm down to do it. I got possibly 2 championships I have to play in.
Let's do it.
Might just be my questions for the start sit. Maybe just the duality of man. But from Austin and myself to everybody else that watches this podcast, I'm going to bid you guys adieu in a special way, because the final word is brought to you by my stream deck. So, peace.